Hi, it's me again. Okay, so we're still in alchemy, and I'm trying to get through it. I'm sorry, life happens, but it's really cool and it's really fun, and I want to do it right. So I want to do it when I have time. Also, today we have props. So I got this new laptop, and it's smarter than me. So trying to figure out how to work the webcam took me a lot longer than it should, and I apologize. Normally, I make videos on my phone. So anyway, this is we went over the seven processes of alchemical transmutation. So this is sort of like just an outline, like a visual, I guess, for you to look at, you know, while I'm explaining them. So you start with calcination. You start at the bottom because that's where we are. We're at the bottom. Um, you start with calcination. You work your way up. So calcination is the first alchemical process, and it is scientifically it is taking a solid object or chemical or whatever and just burning it all to hell, to ash. Once you get that ash from whatever you had before, you manipulate it further from there, but you break it down. That's the whole point of calcination, is breaking a substance down to get to its core, to get to the inside of it, to its you know deeper inner part of who it is. You break it down. I'm just gonna read because it sounds better when I write it than it does when I just ramble. Okay. Calcination begins in the Muladhara, or the lead chakra. The Muladhara is your root chakra. um, Planetarily, big picture, calcination is the fire of creation, the formation of a livable environment from molten matter and volcanic ash, creation through destruction. Psychologically, calcination is the destruction of the ego and our attachment to the materiality which weighs us down. It is the natural humbling process of life knocking us on our ass to remind us that what we want is not always what we need. We are bigger than that. Who we're meant to be is not the person we thought we would be or strive to be, but much more, while possessing much less. In chemistry, just as in alchemy, its predecessor, anything you wish to work with must first be broken down to its least solid, yet still manipulatable form. If we were trying to chemically change lead into gold, we would have to do it from the inside out. Elsewise, we could just dip the lead into gold and go on about our day. To transform something, you can't just dip it into its intended result. You have to break through its surface and change it at its core. To change something at a molecular level, you must first get to the molecules. You could extract the inner core and change it that way, but as soon as you reinserted it into its original shell, it would be corrupted again by the same environment it just left. How do you change a man's mind? You don't. You change his heart, and he changes his own mind. Calcination is attacking the ego, indirectly attacking the ego. It uses the environment of its victim to break down the walls, misconceptions, and misguided priorities that the material world spends so much of its time imprinting on us. It is the environment that is pulling us away from our spiritual development. It is the outside influences which separate us from each other and our true selves. Some people speak all day long and not a word is spoken of their own original thought. You encounter this often by those brainwashed, especially by religious doctrine. They believe with all of their heart and soul that which they have been told, and you know how the best lie is just a twisted truth. So, if you believe there's a man who can save you from some mysterious folly that you don't remember being a part of. I mean, whatever it is that you want to believe, if you believe it with all your heart, it's real for you, absolutely. But if you can believe in Thor or Horus or Jesus or Krishna, why can't you be that? Why can't you become that? You know what I mean? If you can believe it's possible, why can't it be possible for you? Anyway, The power in knowledge is not only in receiving, but also in withholding knowledge, the darkness within the light. This is why the first step to power is the one that destroys you. Calcination is the death of pride, the consciousness' greatest nemesis. This is not a natural death of old age. This is a vicious, premeditated, mafia-style hit contracted to the most ruthless and unfeeling assassin of all time, karma. To warm up, karma will starve the ego. If you want something to stop getting bigger, you must stop feeding it. If money and attention feeds your ego, get ready to be broke and alone. This is by no means the completion of the mission, merely the setup. Completion comes only when the ego is down on his knees, begging for mercy, only at rock bottom with a pistol to his head and life flashing before his eyes, and nowhere to turn for help can the ego be defeated. But pulling the trigger is a choice that you make, a choice that only you can make. This is your free will coming into play. Our will is what pulls the trigger or cages the beast. You can keep your ego in a cage and hope that he doesn't escape while you're monologuing. We do it all the time. And you can also destroy the ego with a double tap to the head and eliminate his chance of return for vengeance. The choice is yours. Karma will deliver you a frightened and regretful enemy, but it is you who decides his fate. The ego, remember, has his birth in Tiferet. As the dark side of consciousness, he knows your weaknesses and your goals. He knows you better than you know yourself. And if you give him the opportunity to return, he will. Survival for the ego means controlling your spirit's acceptance of truth. He must make you see through his eyes. This is why pride is the main food source for the ego. Pride and vanity feeds your ego. Tiferet's illusion is self-identification with the ego, thinking that you are the ego. That is exactly what he wants. That is also why killing the ego feels a lot like committing suicide. And in a way it is. But remember that death is only a transition to another life. Calcination is about destruction of the being in order to promote creation of the becoming. You legitimately have to kill everything, kill all your knowledge. Everything you think you know, everything you think you are, everything you think you're not, you're wrong. Everything anybody has ever taught you, everything you learn from experience and memory and school and church and whatever, it's all, no, empty your cup. Dump it all out. It's all useless. So that's the first step of alchemical transmutation. You literally have to forget who you think you are, forget what you think you know. And it's a humbling process because this is something that your ego will fight to the very death. It's something that you instinctively just don't want to do. I don't want to lose myself. I don't want to die. I don't want to kill who I am. I don't want to be somebody I'm not. The thing is, you don't know who you are. You know what the world expects you to be, and you know what you've been told to be, and you know where you are now is a collection of your experiences and your sensory perceptions. You've never discovered who you are beyond sensory perceptions and experiences. You have thoughts, and the thoughts are your sensory perceptions being processed, and then you forming an opinion or a hypothesis about them. That is not that's not who you are. That's just your computer system working within your body. You really have not put a whole lot of effort and energy in your life so far into knowing, just knowing, like not sensing, not thinking, knowing, like to know something. To know something, you have to stop sensing and you have to stop thinking. You have to cut it all off and just listen, observe, connect. This is how you discover who you are. And when you do that, you discover that all the things that you thought that you were or that were important to you aren't. That's not who you are. But before you can discover who you are, you have to discover who you're not. So the first 30 years of your life, you're living a whole bunch of who you're not, just so you know. And that's cool. Anyway, back to calcination. The ego uses cheap tricks and half-truths to maintain authority. The moral values gathered from a lifetime of religious doctrine based on intolerance and extreme punishment, for example. The ego strikes your pillars in order to bring down your defenses. He uses this to separate you from the connections you should be strengthening. Now you have a construct from which to judge others, separating yourself from them as if there was a difference between your sin and theirs. Look, darkness is darkness, light is light. Living in the gray and calling it white is a half-truth. We all must have a weakness in order to find strength, and we all must have strength in order for weakness to exist. And we all must help each other find the balance. Cunning is the ego. And so to defeat him, you must outsmart him, deprive him of all sustenance and resources. He must be made low. He must become ash, not completely gone, but definitely stripped of all power. This is a lifestyle change. That friend who tells you what you want to hear instead of what you need to hear is feeding your ego. That church service you regularly attend, where you pay for illusion with more illusion, is feeding the ego. That side romance that gives you passion when your marriage is seriously lacking, that's feeding the ego. The material possessions that you want but don't need and are not only continuing your life of working for your own unhappiness, but also feeding the ego. Like, you don't need extra shit, like all this bigger house, bigger car, bigger whatever. You don't need, all you need is just enough. Anything else, it's feeding your ego and it's building up your vanity, and you're building the tower. And the higher you build your tower, the more it's going to suck when you fall off that bitch, because that's what's happening. That's what's coming in calcination. In the tarot, it is the tower card. It's the lightning struck tower. So legitimately, it's the humbling process of calcination, where the fires come and just burn down the whole tower, and it just happened to be a condominium with all your shit in it. You know what I mean? Like, that's calcination. You need to begin by humbling yourself, and you humble yourself by uber fucking your life up. So there's that. Calcination is painful for the mind because the mind lost in the ego's dictatorship doesn't know how lost he is. But you are not the ego. You are the spirit. This process should not destabilize your spirit. It will burden your lifestyle and establish social connections for sure. But in the end, when the ego is overthrown, the spirit retakes control. Calcination is about, humbling. It's that divorce that just fucking broke you. You spent your whole life building it around a person and a lifestyle and goals and, codependent dreams. And you lost who you are independently of that. And because of that, when you lose a relationship or whatever, you don't know who you are. You feel like you lost all of who you were because you only built your life around that, which is very imbalanced and codependent and horrible smothery tactic. But also it shows you that which you refused to see prior. It shows you that you are an individual and you're not half of a whole. You're not whole in and of yourself yet, but that's not because you need someone else to complete you. You could very well be complete all on your own. All you need is to balance your own energies. You have all of the energies needed. You just need to balance them out so you have an equal amount of both and categorized equally. But yeah, so anyway, calcination. Calcination is the first step of the alchemical transmutation. You can, scientifically calcin things. Yeah, of course. And burn them to ash and manipulate the ashes and add them to other stuff. Absolutely. So like when, Leonardo da Vinci and all of the ancient Hermetic alchemists would write their notes, calcination would definitely fit into whatever they were talking about or whatever type of scientific formula they had or whatever, but if they wrote something like must be calcined, what that means is this motherfucker cocky. That's what basically, like, he's not ready. The student is not ready. must be calcined. You know what I mean? Like it's a code. So yeah, calcination. Step 1, lead. This is your lead. Um, Muladhara is your lead chakra, the root chakra. And when they say alchemy is about turning lead into gold, um, they're accurate. But lead is you. Raw, pre-calcined you. And by the time you're done with the alchemical process, you're gold. But it's a lifetime process. It's not like a 7-year situation. It's like, calcination might take years. You might have to do it several times if you don't get the next couple steps right. um, it sucks a lot. It depends on your will and your stubbornness and your understanding of who you are and where you're going and what you want, your goals. Anyway, yes, that's the first step of alchemical transmutation, calcination.